In the age of social media and online platforms like Discord and Reddit, many people find their most meaningful friendships are the ones they made online. I myself have some online friendships. I've met people through Discord in communities about various subjects, like my favorite TV series, NBA and my favorite NBA team, addiction and recovery communities, and I created a Discord myself 5 years ago about hip hop and music production. So online friendships can be very valuable, but here's the problem that sometimes occurs. People overinvest in these relationships and communities, and they're unable to connect with people well in the real world. This can be difficult when they go into university or they start working jobs and they need to connect with people outside these internet bubbles. Social media and platforms like these make it easier for people to connect over their highly specific interests. Maybe they're into meme stock trading or obscure art styles or very rare video games, trying to speed run them or defeat them with a not very good character. And these types of communities get very insular, and maybe people have trouble talking about these things in these communities in the real world, which is why they stay in these communities talking about them instead. Maybe they've been even bullied or ostracized for talking about these very niche ideas and niche interests in the real world. But here's the thing, these hyper specific communities often have their own memes and their own slang. And when people try to bring those out into the real world, other people don't really know what you're talking about. It can be hard to connect with people outside these little niches and bubbles. And I really think that this got exacerbated by COVID. I think I myself feel very lucky that I was not in university or even high school or elementary school during COVID, because I think people had a tendency to bury themselves more in these online internet niches when they were told they must stay home than they would have had COVID not happened. Online identities are often very carefully curated. People often obscure certain things about themselves, maybe their name, even their real name, their relationship status, their financial status, their appearance. They may otherwise just talk about things that they've accomplished that they haven't actually accomplished. You don't really have the same vetting of these individuals as you do with your real life relationships. And people can become someone online that they're not offline. And additionally, these communities often are almost speaking in a different dialect because there's such heavy slang and there's so many memes and inside jokes. They develop their own lexicon, and people outside these communities really don't understand at all what they're talking about. So when people try to bring this slang and these words into the real world, they can be a bit alienated because they're not understood well. So when your entire social network is centered around the internet and online around specific niches, you lose the ability to find common ground with other people in the real world. This is the most important part, not just not understanding the slang, but just the ability to relate to and identify with people outside of these communities. Some people that spend all their time in these internet communities struggle to talk about anything outside of their niches. They're not worldly. They don't know anything about what people outside of these niches that they've spent a lot of time on online know about, and they're almost alien to one another. Um, Kind of leaves them unprepared for conversations with peers that have had different experiences and circumstances. So I really think prior to the internet, this wasn't as much of an issue because there were just less things to consume in general. There were less video games, there were less musical artists. Maybe somebody liked the Beatles and someone liked Led Zeppelin, but there weren't the giant amount of different types of music and different types of entertainment that there are now, where people can kind of just become so invested in those things that they really don't have any common ground. They have nothing to connect about and talk about in the real world when they spend all of their time on these internet niches. So even more dangerous than the aforementioned things, I think, is the compassion gap, where people start to feel superior to people outside of these communities, where they start to think that other people are uninformed or uncool or just plain stupid because they don't know about the things that the people in these internet niche communities know about and spend a lot of their time caring about. So this creates problems with empathy and building real world networks. So really, I just think that this can have a profound effect on mental health when people feel they're kind of forced to stay in these communities because when they go out in the real world, they have no way to engage, they have no way to find common ground, they have no way to interact with anything with people outside of their specific niche communities. And I would say that maybe some people watching this will argue that it's possible to have a fulfilling life without needing any face-to-face interaction, without needing physical relationships and communities, because we see that there are a lot of people that succeed, like as Twitch streamers or YouTube content creators or, pro gamers. And it really seems like all of their life is spent online and interacting with people online. But I do think that even those people that maybe seem successful and are doing well financially would be more satisfied and fulfilled if they were also able to connect with people outside of their bubbles, outside of their little world and their niches. And I do think that they will, even those successful people will run into situations where they will be much better off if they have developed some common ground with people outside of their bubbles and outside of their niches. So people struggling with this issue could really try to start balancing their online relationships and interactions with face-to-face socialization, even if it's awkward initially. It might sound like an ironic suggestion, but you can actually utilize the internet to find groups of people to meet with in the real world rather than using the internet to stay on the internet. You can use websites like meetup.com. There's Facebook groups for meetups. For me, going out and playing the sport disc golf was really good because people are really welcoming for new players. It's quite different than traditional ball golf where you kind of go with your business partners or the friends that you already know. You don't really join or invite new players to just come play with you. But in this sport, people really do. And that's a good way to get some interaction in the real world in an inexpensive way. Disc golf is a very inexpensive sport. So if you're really, used to online interaction as your default, it might be awkward at first, but you really need to just push through it. And I really think it will be worth it if you do. Just like anything that's new, the more that you push through it, the more that it's just going to become comfortable. And another thing is the book Dale Carnegie's How to Win Friends and Influence People was a very profound and helpful book for me. And I think one of the biggest takeaways from that book for me was that you really should be genuinely interested in other people. So this is pretty key to somebody that's really invested in their internet niches and is having trouble interacting with people in the real world. You need to sit down and meet that new person and listen to what makes life meaningful for them. You can't only think like, oh, and if this person doesn't watch the same movies that I watch and play the same video games as I play, then there's no way to interact with them. See what gives that person that passion and that fire the same way you get that passion and that fire for those interests, and become genuinely interested in what's exciting and makes life worth living to them. I was recently very terrified to try something, bachata and salsa dancing. I have no natural skill at this. I've never taken a dance class before of any kind. And I was really worried about embarrassing myself, especially because I live in a country that is not my native country, where my native language is not spoken. And I really didn't think that I would be naturally talented at it, and I wasn't. Um, but I do think that it was an incredibly positive thing for me to have done, to have gotten out of my comfort zone and put myself out there doing something in the real world that is not in an internet niche behind the computer. I will also say that I did create a community 5 years ago about hip hop production, as I mentioned earlier in the video. And as you could guess, and as I've touched on, a lot of like memes and slang and inside jokes have proliferated there. And most people that would join that community, if they just stumbled upon it, wouldn't understand what we're talking about because they don't create music. They don't create hip hop music. They don't know what a digital audio workstation is or really any of the lexicon or terminology that we're using. And perhaps if I spent all of my time in there and this was my only form of socialization, this could be a problem. However, 5 years ago, I'm sorry, 3 years ago, I moved here to Italy and I got involved with organizing an international group where people from all over the world hang out at least once a week. We have people from almost any country you could imagine, different religions, different belief systems, different perspectives, different reasons for being in Italy, different goals. And we're all able to get along. And I think if I didn't have experience, if I didn't know how to put myself out there, then this would be something very difficult to manage because I would only be used to interacting with people in these niche communities. But instead, I was able to keep this community going, and it's still going strong. So this kind of drives home the point that I'm ultimately trying to impart, that there's nothing wrong with having taking part in internet communities or even creating your own internet community, so long as you leave some time in your life for real world face-to-face communities as well. I think that your online life and your offline life deserve an equal amount of presence. So in conclusion, I'm hoping this video doesn't come across as like a long-winded way to say go outside and touch grass, because that's not all it is. It's also about, the importance of balancing your internet communities with your offline communities. If you overinvest in one or the other in this digital age, I think it can be detrimental, because I do think that there's a lot of importance to online communities. I don't think I could have found my support for my addictions in the real world. I actually tried and I wasn't happy with those face-to-face communities. I needed to go online to find communities that were going to be helpful and supportive for that. Also, I don't think I could have developed and created a music community in the real world as much. But that being said, just the overinvestment in these communities where you lose the ability to connect face to face, you lose the ability to have common ground with anybody, you have nothing to talk about except your specific niches, and you don't know how to listen and learn and kind of take interest in people that have different interests than you, that's when it becomes a problem. So really, I'm just trying to recommend a balance. Striking that balance is key. Thanks for staying to the end of this video. This is my first personal life experience, self-improvement video, and I plan to make more like it. I'd love to hear from you in the comments. Have you ever dealt with anything like this, where you've needed to kind of intentionally balance your offline and online communities? Maybe leave me a comment about how you got over some of your difficulties with this. Or if you have any other questions, feel free to write that in the comments. Or if you just think I'm completely wrong and stupid, you can write that in the comments as well. And if this video was interesting to you whatsoever, please like and subscribe. Thanks so much.